This is where you leverage your network. Your network is your net worth. You know, the more shit you take, the more money you make. Why do some people get to this level and some people only get to this level? Because everybody's going to stop pushing at some point.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Convo Couch. Today we've got Tim Kennedy, the CEO of LMS Thinking. He's a sales and marketing consultant who's built a $50 million sales business not once, twice, but 3 times in London, New York, and Sydney. Thanks for coming on today, Tim.
Thanks for having me, Sam. This is awesome. One of my grandparents died, and so out of the ridiculous amount of grandchildren, I'm one of 6 kids. Both my parents are one of 6 kids, so I have a very large extended family. They all got and this would have been 30 years ago, $2,000 or something like that. And so my dad came to me and said, all right, pick an instrument. We're going to, you're going to start music. And so that's what I used my $2,000 for, and other people used them for different things. So that was 8 or 9 years old. I started the basics of saxophone, and then it all kind of accelerated quite quickly. I ended up playing in the opening and closing ceremony of the 2000 Olympic Games here in Sydney, which was 2 years of practice and work to get into that. And then I decided I was going to be a musician. I nearly joined the army band. So my hometown is Wagga, and that's where Kapuka Army Base, where everyone does all their basic training for the army. And I did work experience in there, and my music teacher was there, and I was at the conservatorium. The major was at the conservatorium. So I don't know, music was it sounded a lot more interesting than anything else. I've never been someone that was excited about going into the corporate world. I thought that's what I was going to have to do, especially after music. So I got into the conservatorium, and I did 2 years, and then I figured out that there's 5 people in the world that make money playing classical saxophone. And the head of Woodwind sat with me and said, Tim, you're going to be really good at something, but it's not going to be this because you're not really committed to it. I ran into a guy I still work with named Jesse Young, who is from Long Island in New York. He just arrived to London the year before, and he was running a company that was, a sales and marketing business. That actually, are we talking about that? Are we talking that you started working in one of my offices in Sydney?
Okay, we can talk about that. That's
how we know each other?
Yes, 100%.
So I started just like you did in one of my offices. I started in his office. And the thing that caught my eye, because again, I'm in London, I have no degree. I haven't completed the degree. I had no British work experience. I was 19 still. And so what were my job options? Work for £4 an hour in a pub or a call center or a retail place, which I wasn't interested in any of those situations, or work on commission, in a business that's growing very quickly and it says they're going to train you and put you into your own company. So I chose the latter, and then things moved very rapidly from there. I was running my first business by the time I was 20. I don't know how to explain this to the general public, because I have my way of explaining it, but I don't know if it's the right way to explain it for this. But yeah, my first year running a company at 20, I made 350,000 euros, which was at that point, probably about $600,000 at 20. And I'm like, oh, okay, well that hard work paid off. I was no upfront capital investment. They funded me into the business. They gave me all the product on consignment, and they supported me, as a young entrepreneur. And then I went from 1 office to 14 by the time I was 23, and from 14 to 50 by the time I was 27. And since then, I've had 50 offices. It was just the UK and Ireland, but then it moved over to New York in 2012, and then Sydney in 2013, and then Los Angeles in 2016. And I'm preparing to head back to do another stint in the US early next year. So yeah, for the last 10 years, I've had 50 offices and 1,000 people as kind of a baseline. And that's my bread and butter cash flow business. That's what I live and breathe. And with the money I've made from that, I've started investing in a whole range of other areas that I'm interested in. I was the work ethic and attitude guy.
Okay.
I wasn't the born salesperson, that in a lot of sales environments, everyone's like alpha males and they're or females, and they're hi, how you doing? What's going on here? And everyone's very excited and all these kind of things, and you think that that's what you have to be. And that's what I thought. I was very uncomfortable. I was very uncomfortable with public speaking. I've always underestimated myself and overestimated other people, I think. And it took a long time to realize that I do actually have, what it takes to actually do something. Because really, in my experience, the introverts end up winning, the nerds end up winning, the introverts end up winning. It's persistent work. It's being able to stick at one thing. It's being able to do all the things that you don't necessarily want to do. When nobody's watching, you do them anyway. And that's what, builds you the base of experience and reputation that, a lot of other people will start to follow what you're doing because you're the one that's actually committed to learning the whole process. I'm a very big advocate for lifelong learning. I think as soon as you start standing still and you think you know everything and you think that, you get comfortable, basically, the world is moving. And if you're standing still, the world is going to keep moving past you. So no, I'm still learning lessons to this day. Investing in other people's businesses, I see a lot of them. I'm learning new industries. There's always new technology. There's always new ways of communicating. This whole COVID thing means everybody's now, doing everything remotely. We'll see how that plays out over the next couple of years. I think young people these days disregard the older generation. They're like, oh, they don't know anything. And no, they do. They've been around the block. If they've done well in life and they've done business over a long period of time, in the end, business is about people. It's about relationships. It's about trust, and the consistency that, trust is built through, a lot of interactions with people. It's when the chips are down, that you figure out who you can trust and who you can't really trust. It's the wise man knows he is a fool, and the fool thinks he is wise. Yeah. The older you get, the more experience you get, the more you realize you don't know, and the more you leverage. This is where you leverage your network. Your network is your net worth. I'm 100% how many times I've been able to solve other people's problems just like that. I had one yesterday actually from Pushka. And same thing. I have mentors, and I think everybody in business has, a network of peers or a network of mentors, probably both. And then they have people that they're training underneath them to replace themselves. That's how you really grow. You get really good at something, you teach someone else how to get really good at that, enough people how to get really good at that, you move to the next level, because you have to learn new stuff in order to give these people somewhere to go. A long time ago, about 10 years ago, I came up with a basic philosophy of investment, which is I'm looking for a rising tide. I'm looking for the best boat in that rising tide, the company, and then I'm looking for the best captain of that boat in that rising tide. So it's the founder, and that's who I'm going to back, because that's my experience. Is if I see aerospace as something that is, particularly drones and unmanned aerial vehicles. That is very much on the rise. I think everyone's becoming a lot more aware of how important mental health is. And so, and I really want to support the mental health of everybody. And so we brought out a technology for everybody in corporate world to have on their phone, access to a doctor of any persuasion closest to their house and closest to their office, mental health resilience training for every different level of a business. And I think that technology can be used a hell of a lot better than it is today. And then networks, there's a company called the Executive Assistant Network, which is the largest network of executive assistants. So, they have this community where they're all sharing all the information, and then there's training courses and there's events and there's progress for executive assistants. And I really like that. My executive assistant has been with me for 12 years, followed me from London to New York to Sydney to Los Angeles, back to Sydney, and now going back over to the US as well. I think executive assistants don't get enough praise for the work that they do. They say behind every great man is a great woman in the personal space, and I think that's true. And whether the executive is a woman and the executive assistant is a man, or vice versa, it doesn't matter. But I don't know anybody at any high level who doesn't have a 2IC who is exceptional. And I look at all executive assistants like that. I think it's great training for anybody. If they want to learn business, go and become an executive assistant to someone, in an industry you're interested in.
Because you basically shadow them and you get to observe firsthand like how they actually operate in, the business environment as an executive assistant.
And that's how it's always been done in history is like you have the master of something, you have the blacksmith or the tailor or the bootmaker or the carriage maker or the lawyer or the accountant, and they have somebody become an apprentice, and they do all the boring stuff for a long time to see if they can hack that. And if they can hack that, then over time they end up becoming, they end up mastering the same thing that the person they're following is doing. And I've always done that as well. Like, it's more important the person you're working for rather than the company that you're working in. The manager, who is really good, because that good person is going to go off and do good things no matter what. And it's the manager that you're working with, the person you're directly reporting to, is probably more important than the company. Why do some people get to this level and some people only get to this level? Because everybody's going to stop pushing at some point. So some people might stop pushing at step 10, some people will stop pushing at step 20. The further you go along, more and more people will drop off. And so if you want to be the person to go from step 1 to step, from A to Z, I guess, or from 1 to 100, there's 99 other places where you could have quit, you could have stopped, you could have given up, that you didn't, where the other 99 people did.